Hey guys, Seán here and welcome to another episode of the Any Given Monday podcast. I'm right beside Eric and this is the second take doing this because the first time I was full sure he was going to say something and he actually didn't say anything and I lost my train of thought expecting you to say something. So Eric, after a week of absence, the first time not having a podcast since the start of 2020, we missed last week.
Yeah.
What have you been up to the last week?
I actually ended up down a rabbit hole there today watching people legless crossing the finish line after marathons, but apart from that I've just been busy with work. There's just been a lot of stuff. Haven't been training a lot either. It's the work. Well, I suppose we're not fully open, but I suppose as we know, things are starting to open back up, and work is starting to get busier again. And yeah, it was just I suppose a change in pace. Really, is the only way to describe it. That we went from very much a routine of working from home and doing the odd bit of work and training, and now it's kind of trying to figure out that new kind of routine, I suppose, is the best thing. And we kind of got caught out with it ourselves even, and we hadn't even got time to put together the podcast. But I think a lot of people are starting to figure out this new kind of normal, really, isn't it? It's quite strange. Well,
yeah, I mean, the last 2 weeks now, I finally eventually did my 5k PB and all the rest, and then the gym opened. I'm like, great, the gym's open, my sanctuary. I've enjoyed running.
It's about time you got that 5k PB as well.
No, yeah, man, I was delighted. I got just barely 1 second under 22 minutes. I was delighted, but I finally got it done. And then I messed myself up slightly doing the run, just a little twinge. So I was like, great, but the gym's open. I'm getting back doing the gym. And I thought, for this podcast, we'll do, because people might be going back to the gym now, not too sure what to do, what not to do. I thought I'd do my top 8 do's and don'ts for that. And as I'm doing that, you're like, here, Seán, look at this lad. And you start showing me videos of people in legless. I'm like, I don't miss running.
So you were doing all your research there of no, people are going back to gyms. I think it's important that we give people some guidance and stuff. And I was just watching people absolutely flat-facing themselves at the finish line.
You're showing me two brothers, and
the Brownlee brothers. Yeah.
One brother's helping the other across the line. I've seen a couple of videos where someone's up front and the person behind helps them through, and they're like, well, why'd you do that? It's like, well, I didn't feel good about winning that race, and we're all in together. But then you were showing me somewhere people are falling.
People ran over people just to beat them.
Yeah, ran over them. People were falling into barriers and stuff. And instead of helping your fellow runner getting up and finish, like if you're running a big event you train for an entire year, right? A full year into this event, and there's a good prize money at the end, right? Yeah. And you're running, you're in second place, and you're around the corner. I'm happy I was second, and you see the guy who's in front first, and he's getting legless and he's had one too many beers, it looks like it, but he hits into the barricade, and you keep running the pace you're running, you're gonna beat him. Is it one of those you have to be there in the moment and you beat him and come back and help, or do you push him along the finish line and go, you know what, he deserved that?
Kick him in the back of the knees and keep going. Take my gold medal and my champagne and
on that note,
sure, he won't even be able to stand on the podium with me if he's in a bad shape. I know, I suppose it's hard. When you see these people, this was the World Championships, I think, when you're looking at the Brownlee brothers, but the guy in second place probably dreamt of winning that thing.
Yeah.
And I suppose for him, when you get to that stage in a race, particularly in a triathlon, once you hit that pace, all you're thinking is finish, and then you turn the corner and all of a sudden the two of them are kind of stopped and you're just seeing the finish line. Hard not to. It is hard not to. But then the other side, we're looking at it, we've never been in that situation. So we're looking at it as in, we're one of 1,000 in a 5k, and you see someone, of course you're going to pick them up and throw them over your shoulder if you have to, but when you're turning, the brain trying to process all what's going on and the tiredness, and all you're thinking is finish race, keep me pace. I can understand why some. Now there was a video I did show you where one guy actually used a man as a hurdle. So while he was on the ground in a jogger, he actually jumped over. I don't think I could do that. I think that's where I draw the line. But yeah, no, it was just it was an interesting perspective, and more so I got there because obviously I haven't been training and carrying injuries and whatever else, and just getting back into it, and that's where we kind of got into this topic of getting back into the gym. So I've been kind of afraid of weights for the last little while, because I'd be I wouldn't be a heavy guy, but 90 kilos is quite heavy to run with, and then I've kind of been afraid of the weights and I'm afraid to do this and that. I don't want to put on the weight, but actually now we're kind of starting to realise it's probably important to add in a bit of that strength and conditioning into the running.
100%, and you have to give me a great segue into it. But I'm going to ruin that segue because I have to go back to this one more time. I can't judge. The closest I've ever felt to it was now, obviously nowhere near world level stage or anything like that, because I was 12 at this stage. We're playing football, and it was one of those things where, you know, we played on, someone kicked the ball out because someone got injured. So the thing was, one of our players just, you know, threw the ball back to the goalkeeper, he started again. So as one of the other team got the ball, he threw it back towards the goalkeeper. Our striker ran, got the ball, put it behind the keeper in the back of the net, and he was like, yay! And the rest was like, no, it was a fair ball, back to the team to kick the ball on again. And he was like, don't care, we scored. But we ended up having to let them score a goal. Your man was going, I was like, why let them score? That happened last year with Leeds and Aston Villa as well. Yeah.
And there was murder.
Oh, it was 7-8 minutes. The clincher, and one lad got sent off, he tapped in the back of the head and all the rest. But
yeah, it's, I don't know, I suppose sport, it's competitive. I suppose when you think of team sports and you think of rugby, like there's actual aggression there, there's that kind of thing. But when it comes to running, you're kind of like, how do you find yourself in these situations to help? But yeah, like, and again, like in some of the long races, like she was 10k into the marathon, and I came across a woman who was under severe pressure, and probably missed a toilet break somewhere around the 5k, and do you know, like, you feel for them. But at the same time, like, people,
well, you're not carrying them an extra 32.2k, you know.
There are certain races where you kind of have to go, but when you're in the final 200 meters, like, unless you're winning the thing, does it really matter?
No, I don't think it really.
No.
You like, even going for PBs doesn't really matter to that extent. But when there's that much money in the line in the World Championships, you can't really relate to it.
It's someone's livelihood. It's someone's job.
Someone's career.
So, you know, you add in those little added incentives, you can see where it gets. Kind of gets a bit more, but hurdling the fella to beat him, I don't know if I could do that. But it was great. It was a great rabbit hole. If anyone wants to do it, just look up people helping people cross finish lines. But yeah, it was very good. And
that's what you did in your Sunday. Anyway, speaking of what I did in my Sunday, we're going to hit the intro music in the podcast, and right after the intro music, we're going into my top 8 things to do, because I didn't got time to do 10. Top 8 do's and don'ts for heading back into the gym, and Eric's going to quiz me on all things related to that. Telling you, the music played there. It just played through, and it kicks back into us, and it's smooth. It's so smooth the way it runs there. Our producer there, shout out to the producer.
A lot smoother than your intros.
Cheers on that one.
Like, I don't know, how many podcasts have we done now? Like, we've 6 months.
6 months. So what's
the
52,
first
26,
Monday?
26,
first Monday we missed last week, and you still can't get them. Like, I even gave you a week off to try and figure out how to do an intro, and you still can't.
I was too busy in the gym.
Yeah, you were.
I tell you what, I wasn't doing in the gym. I wasn't doing complete HIIT sessions with jumps for 45 minutes, because that's point number 1 on things not to do when you're heading back into the gym.
Go for it. Tell me. Now, and this is why I ask, because gyms are open. People are panicking. Gyms are going this way. They're doing online classes. They're doing this. Everyone get back in and absolutely ruin yourself. It's been 3-4 months since people have seen a class or a spin class or a personal trainer. Like, but I know me, when it comes to January and I've eaten all my food and stuff, when it comes into January, I'm like, yes, let's go full tilt. I'm gonna run this, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna do this training, that training. But like, why are you against, like, it's still the summer, people are kind of in that mood, they're feeling good, they want to exercise, why not get into that high intensity training?
Well, this, a caveat before we start this, a lot of this depends on if you're still doing running. So when you're doing running, you're obviously doing your high intensity, doing your runs, doing interval runs, so your body's taking a beating. So the idea behind going to the gym should be strength training to complement that, because there's no point in doing high intensity stuff if you're doing your intervals already, which is going to take it out of you. You're going to need that recovery. Like, you wouldn't do intervals 4 or 5 times a week. So why would you do intervals once or twice a week and then do interval type training, that high intensity type training in the gym? Because you want, like, it takes a beating on your central nervous system. Like imagine your central nervous system is like a glass full of water. Like, you're emptying that glass a fair bit when you're doing your interval runs, so you need time to fill that glass back up again. So why would you do 45 minutes of non-stop jumps? And, you know, I don't mean jumping jacks, I mean jumping on the spot for a minute and then doing something else. Like, your muscles are going to get tired, and then when your muscles get really tired, it's like trying to do more jumps up on top of it, it's going to lead to injury. Like, if you're doing intervals, you're giving yourself a 2-minute break for a reason. Like, yet when we do HIIT stuff in the gym, it's like we're not giving ourselves that 2-minute break. You're expected to go all out after 10 seconds again. It's just not possible. And the amount of jumps and stuff you do will drop, your technique will drop, and because of that, you're going to increase your chance of getting injured, and that defeats the whole purpose of being in the gym in the first place.
I suppose the difficulty I always have is, like, running is one training, so jumping jacks is not training. Like that's my brain kind of goes, I can do that because that's different. That's HIIT training with push-ups and this and that. That's not me running, but it's not the case at all. It really isn't. Like it's, but that's my problem that I do. I'm stupid in that sense. Where I'm just like, sure, like I'm same if I go out or say I do that intensity training, but I do an upper body intensity training. Yes, technically I'm getting away with it, but I'm still burning down them energy levels and that store level, and I just find that difficult to correlate that all training is training.
I mean, upper body training and stuff is good, and we'll get that in a few minutes, but I want to hit something there on what you're saying, the jumps, and that's why point number 2 is you should do plyometrics. So you should do
plyometrics.
Plyometrics is a type of jump, so your squat jumps, your split jumps, but pace them out. You're not doing 45 minutes of them, you're doing like 5 to 6 jumps over 30 seconds. Jump up in the box and that kind of thing. So you're jumping up, pausing for a second, getting your breath back, make sure you got a bit of energy again. You're doing a big jump again. But you're not doing 40 seconds, do as many jumps as you can, and 20 seconds there, do jumping jacks for 40 seconds. Like, the exercises aren't bad, but you just need to space them out. Know why you're doing it. So, like a squat jump, you should be doing it for power rather than speed of many times you can, because that's just like jumping in the spot. And because you're doing it so much intensity on it with no breaks, like I said earlier, that could lead to injury. There was a study done in 2014 on plyometric training. So it was a 4% improvement on experienced runners over a 2.4k time. And you might think, well, experienced runners, that's not me. But to get an experienced runner to have a 4% improvement on their time,
what would it do for me?
Exactly, and that's a huge thing.
Where's
now
my nearest wall to jump on?
They did that with different runs. It wasn't just plyometrics alone. You still have to incorporate your other type of running, and that's, you have to space out your week where you might have your plyometrics, which if you're doing a strength training session, I would put them in at the end of the walk when you're good to go, you're feeling great, you're not too tired. Blast out your plyometrics, your box jumps, different things like that. By blast out, I mean work hard at them, but that doesn't mean work faster, as in get as many as you can in a minute. It's like work smarter towards that. And combining that in your strength session with your different runs can definitely help. But look after yourself first and foremost.
Yeah, but I suppose it's like that. You get to that phase. Well, I suppose I always kind of relate what you were telling me in terms of doing the gym workouts back to the running workouts, and there's like, even when we do the intervals, there comes a stage when you get to your 6th, 7th, 8th interval where you have to question, is 9 and 10 going to be beneficial, or is 9 and 10 just going to cause me more harm than good? But it'd be like that with it. Form is the most important thing, and when your form goes out the window and you're absolutely just dragging yourself along, you kind of have to question, are you benefiting from that, or are you not? If
you're doing interval runs, I know when we're doing the challenge, like I did about 400 meter interval runs, and we'd get to, I'd be trying to do them with a 130, but if I did an interval run with my 2-minute break and all, and I was seeing going to 140, 145, it's like, I might stop this today. I might take a longer rest the first time, but if it happens again, I'd stop it. And it's the same thing with plyometrics. Even though the jump is high, or big jumps, you don't have the energy there, and you feel like you're not making the box. Well, then you need to pull it back and say, you know what, I'm done on that. I'm after frying myself. I need to let myself recover and come back another day. Treating it as the exact same thing, but a lot of times we don't. It's like, I'm sweating, and we judge workouts by sweating how much pain we're in, and that's a bonus tip there at the end. A bonus point. It's like we judge it by, sometimes we judge the gym by like how much we sweat and how hard we worked, and how much pain our legs is in, but by a good workout, and that's not really the case. But it actually does bring me on to point number 3, and that's about eccentric training. Eccentric training is the lowering of doing an exercise. So you imagine doing a squat. Okay. You're holding a weight, whatever it is. You lower yourself down, lower your hips down. That's eccentric. It's the lengthening of the muscles when you're lowering yourself into it. Or if you're doing a push up, that's slowly bringing your body towards the ground. That control movement, that's eccentric. Eccentric, if you do too much eccentric stuff, that's what's going to cause the delayed onset muscle soreness, that pain 2 days later. What the hell is that? Doing too much of that. A small bit of it is good, because if you're running downhill, you'll get that eccentric kind of work there, because your legs have to reach further for each step going downhill. If you imagine compared to uphill, it's
short, sharp.
Yeah. Whereas downhill, it's more like if you did a heavy leg day, and the next day some people say, oh geez, going upstairs was sore, but going downstairs was even worse. That's
more of a stumble than a walk.
That's the eccentric work. So some of it is good, and especially like we're talking about hills and downhill running, throwing some of it in, but throwing too much of it in would be, that's when you start breaking down the muscle fibers a lot, that leads towards the bulkier muscle and different things like that. Now, you would have to have a hell of a lot more calories in to truly get bulky. So it's not really heavy weights that causes that. It's more so the eccentric training that would cause that. Another side point on that is, since we're talking about plyometrics, which has very little eccentric, because it's literally just down real fast and jump up to get that kind of spring. I was talking to Ruben, an old podcast guest. We were talking on Instagram about like strength to rate ratios, and we were talking about trap bar deadlifts, where what he'd do was to work on the strength and to avoid the eccentric. He'd be at the bottom of the deadlift and he'd shoot himself up holding the bars, so up to a stand position, and he'd let go of the bar. So it just drops. He's doing no eccentric work at all. So he'd do a couple of reps of that, and then like he was saying, he was afraid people look at him not knowing what he's doing in the gym. But he has a purpose, he has a reason for it, and it makes a lot of sense where you're working just on that concentric. So he's working on that power, like.
I'd say he got some looks in the gym of people.
Oh yeah,
throwing his weights out of pram. It is always like, I'm again, like I've picked up the knee injury again, but that's because I don't look after myself with the prehab. I don't do the gym work because with the amount of running and cycling and stuff as well, and it is excuses. What I'm making here is excuses, but there's probably a lot of people out there that make the same ones as me. Is I'll burn up an hour and a half on a long run, and I won't give time to the gym or the stretch, and I won't, because I'm like, I've already trained and I've the next thing to do today, and to some people, going running for an hour and a half is a lot of time, and a lot of time out of a day to give alone. But it's definitely something that I have to look at, and the likes of Ruben getting in touch through the Instagram and stuff it was interesting to see that I'm not, and at the same way, bring it back to Danny kind of hit on this point a couple of weeks ago, that like, you're not doing all this extra stuff as extra training. You're doing this as a complement to what you're doing, and it's sure I'm turning 28 this year, and I was today years old, and I realised that I kind of have to start thinking of broader training plans. It can't all just be the run. It can't all just be get out and do the quick pace, do this, do that, because I only get so far, and then the body tells me pretty much just to piss off, really, like to be completely honest about it. So yeah, like hearing these little things, I don't know, maybe people out there already know it, but I definitely don't.
Has to compliment you. I remember a couple of years ago we used to play 5-a-side. Remember the AstroTurf football and stuff like that? Yeah. And I'd have to get there 10 minutes beforehand and start warming up and doing squats and stuff. But you just hop on and start kicking the ball and stuff, and I was so envious. And you were like, it's all in your head. I'm like, no, trust me, it's happened so many times. I start kicking the ball or start running 100 mile an hour straight away playing Astro without warming up, I'll tear a hamstring, I'll tear a quad, I'll do something again. And you just have to see how your training should all complement each other. Now there has to be a rhyme and reason for it, and it also helps with your motivation. I mean, if you can go to the gym with, this is how it's going to help my running, you're going to go. If you treat it as an extra, it's not going to.
It was the difference between myself and Austin in the marathon last year. Austin in his episodes talked about that once you have the work done in your head, when you get to that, now when you get to the wobbly leg syndrome, I don't think anything's going to help you bar the Lord's Prayer now, to be honest. But he was talking about, he had done all the hamstring exercises, he had done all the strength exercises, all the prehab as part of his training, and what went for me was my hamstrings and the lactic acid build up, and I hadn't got that in the head. I was just like, I'm done. Do you know, whereas he had, no, I've done the work, I've done the conditioning. So he conditioned as well as trained, and that was the fundamental difference between the two of us, because we hit that 30 to 35k and I was goosed, and the last 8k I struggled, whereas he kept going because he had that little bit extra. Our training plan was the exact same, and the purpose we did it, well, he did his training in Africa, I suppose that was a major difference. But
training,
yeah. So that was a big difference. But we followed the exact same training plan for the purpose of seeing the difference. But he added in little extras in terms of the gym work.
Yeah.
And now that we're talking about it, it's starting to trigger that. I was like, and I see him doing his prehab, and I'm just sitting there eating something whenever I'm with him, like, and then I go running with him. But I do have to take that time, particularly when we're getting into the longer distance, and you want to improve. Like I'm fed up being the same or just getting 10 seconds better. Like I'd like to see a good difference in myself, but not only that, a healthier me in terms of the running and not doing damage to myself and complementing all that kind of training. It's there's a lot to be said for it.
100%. Yeah, I'm jumping all over my top A here, but you hit something there, the nail on the head with working on hamstrings, stuff like that. I find when a lot of people go into the gym, they do your squats, your lunges, and then they might do planks and upper body work, and they really completely ignore the backside. They ignore the hamstrings. They think they're hitting glutes a little bit with squats and stuff, but you can focus on a lot more with doing different kind of glute bridges and single leg exercises and that kind of thing. So it's, don't ignore your entire backside. And I'll put it this way, like when we first started in the gym, 18-year-old dumb Sean in the gym, he trained bench press and bicep curls, completely ignored his back and the shoulders started rounding and stuff. Barely did leg day, but when he did do leg day, he probably did squats and lunges and completely lowered his backside completely. So everyone sees him from the front, so you always train, I suppose, the mirror muscles, for a lack of a better term, on it, whereas the backside don't train too much. But if you want to be more of a well-rounded runner or anything at all, you need to start training the backside more. So you need to start doing your push exercises, your pull exercises, your squat and your hinge. Your hinge is your if you imagine a slight bend in your knees, pushing your hips back, that kind of thing, that sets you up for a deadlift, single leg deadlift, glute bridges and different things like that, using your hips a lot more, because your hips are predominantly used a lot in running, and that's where you should start doing your single leg stuff as well.
And that's the one thing I didn't realise until I keep getting injured and I keep going and they keep saying your hips are weak, your core is weak, your glutes are weak, and I'm like, what? I'm running miles. I'm running up mountains. How can they be weak? But they don't get trained on the run. Exactly.
It's the stronger muscles, the ones that compensate, they'll keep going and they'll keep getting overworked until they get injured, whereas the weaker muscles aren't switched on enough because you're not using them in the gym. They don't get used at all, so they take a nap and the other ones get overworked, whereas if you work them all together as one unit, they'll all work together.
And I suppose like the glutes and stuff, everyone's like, oh, the glutes is just that little thing. The glute is one of the biggest muscles in the body, like. And the thing is, mine doesn't work, so it's one of the largest muscles in the body not working, and all these little muscles in the legs are carrying all of me around 21 kilometers on a Sunday, and everything else is 60k a week. All these little muscles around the knees are carrying me to compensate for one of the largest muscles in the body not working.
And you feel grand until you don't.
3, 4, 5 months later, then bang, I can't do anything for a month. So I'm in.
And the work and then the next point is, when you're doing these exercises, your lunges, your single leg deadlifts, I talked about not doing too slow, doing the eccentric, spending 3-4 seconds, but you still need to do them controlled, slowly down, slowly up, and a nice controlled tempo rather than just blasting through them. So they're fit for purpose. You know the exercise you're using. Like squats shouldn't be just hips down, hips up, hips down, hips up. You should be like pushing those knees out, trying to separate the floor with your feet, slowly going down, slowly back up, squeezing the glutes at the top of it. By doing them more slow and controlled and focusing on the muscles you're working on, that's going to help you a lot more. It's like when you're doing your running, you're focusing on the intervals, you're also focusing still on your breathing, your running posture and all the rest, so you're not slumped over when you're doing your runs, especially if you do your easy runs. It's easy to switch off, and no pun intended there. Like you're thinking about being upright and slight forward lean, the hips sagging, what's going on here. Same with strength training. Don't just go through the motions. Have a slow but controlled. Think about that mind muscle connection, I suppose. Think about everything you're doing while in the gym.
I was actually, the guy who was working on my knees was actually telling me about this, that in the off season is the time where you build that muscle memory.
Yes.
And that's what he was telling me. It was like, that's when you try and change how you run or how you cycle. And we were talking about cycling at the time, and I was telling him about a watt bike I was using, and the beauty of the watt bike is it shows how your power. So obviously on a cycle are those who aren't involved in cycling more so, that there's also an upstroke. Everyone forgets. Everyone just thinks it's power down, but there's actually an upstroke to it. And then when you're on a watt bike, it actually shows you how that power is distributed. So as you're powering down, you need to be pulling up, and if you don't pull up, it'll give like your power down, so it'll just draw a figure of 8 for you. And what you're looking for is the round circle, so you're looking for power the whole way through the cycle of the revolution. And we were talking about that and how you build it, and he was like, you're not going to build that during the race season.
Yeah.
He's like, that's when you're in your winter and when you're just sitting on the bike or going for your easy run and you're just thinking about how's my toes, how's my posture, how's my power, and all these different things. And eventually when it comes to race season, the body starts to remember that's what we're trying to do. And I suppose that's probably similar to what we're doing with the gym exercises as well, that
100%.
I'm not necessarily thinking of my glutes when I'm on a run, but if I put in the work in the gym, when them muscles are starting to work on their own back, everything else will fall into itself when it comes to the long runs.
Pulling back slightly on it to get the exercise and stuff right, it can feel hard, it can feel awkward at first, but doing it right over time is going to build you to get stronger. It's like, push-ups, some people find it easier just going straight down and up, and the elbows will flare out to the side and stuff like that, and it's like that's going to wreck your shoulders, whereas you bring your elbows in, like, I feel like elbows right back down and up into push-up, and there's like more tension across chest. Like, that feels harder at first because you're recruiting more muscles, but over time that's gonna get stronger if you keep doing that. My next point is on training. We've got 3 more left.
What number are we up to here?
We're all over the shop on this one. We're heading. We just did 6. We're heading back to 5.
What was 6?
6 was we just did 6.
Yeah, but what's the
back of the
sheet?
legs and stuff like that. Don't look at my sheets.
All right. Okay. Right.
Be careful the hamstrings. Don't,
you said number 1, and now we're on 6.
We're on 6. We're heading back to 5.
Okay, we're back up to 5.
And 5 is don't train every rep to failure. You got to work hard, but leave 1 or 2 reps in the tank so you don't pretty much blow yourself out.
Oh.
If you're doing interval runs, you're not going to go 100 mile an hour in the very first one, or really the last one. You might push a bit more towards the end, but you're not going to go all out sprint because you're not going to be able to do many more intervals after that. So, I mean, you should work hard. Each set should be like a build up towards a 7, 8 out of 10, but if you had to do 1 or 2 more reps, it should be there. You shouldn't be training towards all-out fatigue. If you're training towards fatigue and you can't do a single rep and you stop with that bar down the chest, 1, unless you've got a spotter there, it's going to be really hard getting that bar back up. But 2, you're pretty much done for because you just went to straight failure. You won't have that strength back. It's going to take a lot longer to recover, and you're wasting a lot of time in the gym, and you're just going to get more fried. So pull back a little bit. Work hard, but it is a balance. It is, and you sometimes will have to cross the line to know where your true strength really is, so you're not holding back too much. Because you might think that's an 8 out of 10, and then when you actually went towards like, I got 2 reps in, I could have got an extra 1. So that's on the individual. If your first rep looks exactly like your 8th rep in terms of speed, mechanics, and everything else, it probably means you can do a little bit more. But if you slow down a little bit in that 8th one, even though you're trying to go as fast, it probably means you're closer to failure than you would have been if it looks the exact same.
Yeah, it's a good way of thinking of it. I suppose, again, I comes from the mentality of where I began training. It was go as hard as you can for as long as you can until you stop. And unless I got to a stage where I was seeing the little specks in the vision and going, all right, I'm done now. that was a good workout. I nearly died. But that's it's definitely. And I suppose when we were putting together training plans for the running group, kind of when we were putting them together, we were looking at people were asking like, how many intervals do you need to do? And it's kind of like how long is a piece of string. It's all person to person dependent. And part of me is like, if we say run 12, like, you should run 14, but in fact you should probably run 10, see how you feel, and everyone's always focused on, and we're definitely the social media kind of focus. You see the 8 packs on this fella and that fella, and how did they get that? I ran for. That's not the way to go about it. It's all about to see how you are, and less is always more. And it's one thing I always said, and it was the hardest concept I grasped with the running was I need to run slower to go faster. I need to develop the heart rate. I need to do the different other little bits and pieces. But that's one thing we mentally, that was the hardest challenge I had. And I suppose if I can take that concept and bring it over to the strength training and my rep training and my interval training, not saying this is great, Sean says I can not work as hard, but working smarter as opposed to harder is probably the best way to describe this, and particularly when we get involved in the gym. 8
good intervals is better than 14 or 12 or 14 bad ones.
Yes.
We've got 2 more to go. We'll wrap this up.
Go on.
Second last one, controversial.
We're on 7.
Controversial.
Go on.
If you're doing running, unless you've done this before and you really, really enjoy doing it, I wouldn't recommend CrossFit.
I hate CrossFit.
Okay, I went PC on it. You just went all out on it. Let me explain why first.
Ozzy loves CrossFit. And I hate CrossFit.
And it's hard for me to say, don't do CrossFit. I wouldn't say don't do it, but I wouldn't say if you want to do running, to do it to get fitter in it. And yeah, Ozzy's a better runner than the two of us, and he's doing it. So why shouldn't you do what Ozzy does? Well, it's a very technical thing. Like you're like they do like workouts today where you're bursting yourself out, going to all out failure. If you're doing 3-4 runs and extra on top of that, you're already starting to burn yourself too much. You're not just working on strength training. It is that more high intensity cardio. And as well as that, there's a lot of stuff they do that requires a lot of skill that if you are not in the right, kipping pull-ups, hate them. Like the amount of people that can't get their arms straight up over their head without like the arms falling forward a bit, yet you're supposed to like shoot your body forward, arms back, and then shoot up over the bar. And a lot of people don't have the mobility to do that. Now if you have the mobility, great, but a lot of people don't, and they force themselves in that situation. It's going to cause them to get injured. Now there's good CrossFit gyms that will build you up the right way, and there's some that don't. If you have an interest in it, by all means go and do it. But otherwise, like CrossFit, you see them on Netflix, the CrossFit athletes, they're unbelievable athletes, so I'm not knocking them at all, but there's a lot of people that do it badly out there. And like even like Olympic lifts, the big clean and jerks and split jerks and all the rest, they're so technical to get into the right position, and there's so many different things going on. Like it's literally just like so many different steps to it that it's a sport in itself. Like Olympic weightlifters will critique themselves doing a lift, and like they're not getting it right 100% of the time. So how is the average Joe supposed to get that right 100%? And then work on that rep to keep working to fail, like blast out 10 as fast as you can, and onto burpees and other things. Like it's the risk reward in terms of injury is pretty high, and you have to figure out if it's worth it or not. I mean, you're getting your cardio, your other things in it, you're running, your strength training is focusing on improving your running. They complement each other. I just don't see the CrossFit complementing it as well.
Now, don't get me wrong, I said I hate CrossFit, but then I equally I follow a lot of CrossFitters on Instagram and stuff. Like I admire what they do. It's great. And if you're into it and you are taking all the precautions and you're this and that, it is a great sport, I suppose, or a great way of training. It's built a brand around the world, and I've seen a lot of people I've known make massive body transformations through doing CrossFit and stuff, but they're equally not going out running marathons. Some are, and fair play to them. Some can complement the two, but for me, I couldn't go doing some of the stuff that the CrossFitters do and then go running. Yeah,
it's insane. Like it is the same what someone do. Someone can do it, and someone can complement. They can balance both, and you get away with it injury free. But a lot of people, would. If you watch some people running, their running form struggles. And running form compared to the form you need for CrossFit is night and day, you know what I mean? And it's just a lot goes into it that unless you're doing specifically for CrossFit, it's a sport in itself, I just don't think it's for a lot of people should be doing it that are doing it. Speaking of which, the last point, we'll get this done.
What number is it?
Number 8. And this is down as number 8.
I didn't see that coming.
Keep it simple. Just keep it simple. There's no point in complicating things. It was a very simple point. It was a very simple point, but a lot of people don't do it. They try and like overthink it and add like one leg up and medicine. Well, fit balls
doing
and
a push up on a big giant ball and
do all these mad sort of things. Like just keep the basics there. Keep the basics. Your reverse lunges. Get your push ups down. Your sugar push ups. Elevate. You have your hands up on a weight bench or something like that. And over time, build it up from there. Start simple and slowly start building it up. If you haven't done any training in the gym or haven't done any training in a long time in the gym, the basics are going to work brilliantly for you. And why do the advanced stuff when the basics work?
Yeah.
So start off simple, slowly build yourself up. And, some of these other exercises like we're talking about, Olympic lifts, a lot of people don't need them. You don't need to do them. You don't even need like certain barbell exercises. You might never do trap bar deadlifts or anything like that. The single leg stuff and working with just body weight and lighter weights will work towards your overall goal. So just keep it simple, keep yourself safe, and let it all complement your running.
Right. So we've got your 8 points. Now I want your top 4 exercises. I'm going into a gym tomorrow. I'm on a running program. Give me your best 4 that I can do that keep it simple.
I'd balance it out. I would balance it out. You put me on a spot there, I would do some sort of push, pull, squat and hinge movement. So I would do a body weight squat, maybe a goblet squat where you're holding the weight with your hands together, elbows by your side. I'd do some sort of squat, or if you want to do a body weight lunge, squat or lunge I'd put there for your knee movement. For a hinge movement, I would probably keep it simple in terms of either some sort of glute bridge, single leg glute bridge, walk out. I probably wouldn't do kettlebell swing just yet, if you're starting back out, because it is technical. Maybe an RDL, but I'd hold back in the reps, and then an RDL is a Romanian deadlift where you'd hold dumbbells by your side, slide bend your knees, and you push your hips back as if your hands are full with the shopping. You're trying to close the door behind you and keep your back flat. It's probably the best way to do that. Then I'd have a push-up variation there. If you can do full push-ups, great. If not, have your hands on a bar against the rack, and then the lower that bar is, the harder it is. And the last one would be some sort of row, TRX row, ring row, single arm rows, that kind of thing. And that's 4 exercises for a full body right there. Might switch it up with a small bit of cardio at the end, and then again might not. Might do a bit of running afterwards.
And all of it can be done at home.
Oh, all of that, most likely at home. Yeah,
that's one thing about it as well. When you're saying keep it simple, and people going back to the gyms, that you don't need a barbell, you don't need this.
The gyms are great because it's a great environment to be in, and it's all these stuff coming back. It's hard for people that are, they're in a sitting room, and some people in the sitting room, they're working there, they're on Zoom conferences all day.
You just need to get out.
Yeah, and to the left it was where they have a dinner, and to the right it was where they're doing workouts. And that's tough. Whereas gyms and stuff provide that environment to work a little bit harder and get more done if you're doing it the right way.
Yeah. Well, that's a lesson in itself. We might do a couple of posts on that this week just to kind of back up what we've been saying. So if you are following us on the Instagram this week, keep an eye out. I'm going to start getting more glute bridges and single leg squats in myself. I'm going to be focused on just some push-ups and ab work as well to kind of strengthen my core, as we talked about. But yeah, it's definitely something to keep an eye on this week as we start to get back onto the normal. We've noticed some people starting to drop off the running actually as it's starting to come back to normal. Is probably our last point, but that's okay. Things happen, and we will have weeks where you won't be able to get out. Work-life balance could now be shifting again as we start to transition forward into the new normal of whatever that will be. But yeah, it is important just to remember, I suppose, even when it gets to that stage in life, and similar to your point number 8, it's just keep it simple.
Keep it simple.
Sometimes you just need to maintain. You can't be training towards something all the time. Sometimes you just need to maintain, and if that's just getting out for a half hour or no pace run, just going out for the 30 minutes and doing a couple of home exercises just to keep yourself ticking over for when time allows you to get back on. But do keep an eye on our Instagram, a couple of our posts, and in the Run Club as well we'll post another little bit. Pretty much we'll get Seán kind of giving me a few exercises to do for the week, and I'm going to bring all of you along for the journey as well. But do you want to do the outro, do you feel?
I'm going to keep it simple. Thank you once again for listening to this week's episode of the Any Given Monday podcast. Myself and Eric, take care.
Bye.
Kept that simple.